Hello everybody, it's Chibi, and today I'm here to bring you an anime review on the 7 Deadly Sins, or the Taizai Greatness. Now, I want to tell you something real quick before I begin this review. I'm going to be splitting up this review into two different segments. I want to have the first half of this video focusing on the events of this episode of Taizai, talking about the events, talking about the development, talking about the progression, stuff like that. And then the second half of this video, which I'll have marked somewhere on the screen, we'll be talking about comparisons with the manga and anime and stuff they are removing or, completely omitting from the series. So I'm probably going to start using this format for now on when it comes to Taizai, because some of you Chibits don't want me talking about comparisons between the manga and anime. Some of you do, some of you don't. So to make sure both things are simple, I'll be focusing on the review of the episode, the first half, and then I'll go into the more critical top review on the second half. So anyways, let's begin. So this episode of Taizai, we have some interesting things going on. For one thing, the overall fan service in this episode. Now, I want to just point out something real quick about the fan service before anyone just starts saying that this is another fairy tale. I just want to nip this in the bud now. Okay. The fan service actually had meaning. If you look closely, the whole fan service segment of this episode, even though it didn't need to be dragged out that much, the fan service of this episode was actually there to show you some conflict building up inside of Elizabeth. You can clearly see Elizabeth was having some form of conflict from this episode, like inner thoughts. Like when Meliodas stated to Diane in this episode, he completely stated like, oh, I couldn't do that to my friend. I couldn't, grab your opie and, touch your ass and stuff like that. Pretty much Meliodas said that to Diane. And we do know Meliodas does this all the time to Elizabeth, so overall what Meliodas just said started some conflict, as we can see building in Elizabeth in this episode. So that fan service scene, even though, yes, I can understand there was a lot of fan service, it was actually there to start that conflict, to show that maybe Meliodas does not think of Elizabeth as a true friend. So now that I got past the fan service, let's just talk about something real quick. So, this episode, we have a lot of fighting. This episode really has a lot of fighting. Like, it goes right into this fucking arc, and it's just starting the fights, and it's pretty good. Actually, I love the animation, the music is fucking nice, and the fights look fluid as fuck, and they actually do follow the panels. The fights and everything do follow the panels properly, and they follow the manga, so yeah, damn good. It really looked nice, this episode. One thing though I will say, the episode, the overall fighting, I felt like they could have actually used some filler there. Now, this is something actually the manga did, and it's not actually the anime's fault, but I felt like the anime could have used some filler in the fights a little bit. Like, they could have, extended some of the fights between King and that old man. They could have extended the fights with Grimoire versus, Diane in this episode. Stuff like that. I mean, they could have added some form of filler to give more fluff to those scenes, but that is the manga's fault of Taizai. It's actually not the anime's fault when it comes to those scenes. All the fights and everything were shown. It's just that what they did is, fighting panels get adapted a lot faster. And so it looks like, it's not much content, but there is a lot of content in that, and actually, they did a proper pacing in this episode. It just, and the manga did not have enough of these scenes, for instance, like a lot of fighting panels, and so it made these overall scenes in this episode seem rather short, like the individual fights, but like I said, that is not the anime's fault. So, moving past that, the episode, though, you have a king versus the old man. Holy shit, that was funny as fuck. Like, oh my god. King. Fucking love King, dude. King is a fucking beast. Like, shit, dude. I love King. Every time, man, he's just smiling and all that. He's just doing, just when he transforms, like, he transformed for Diane to get her freaking sacred treasure back. That was fucking great. Oh my god. I laughed my ass off. I did, and it was funny. There was a lot of comedy moments in this episode, and it managed to keep the overall atmosphere that Taizai actually usually has, so it did a damn good job there. And for the most part, the episode had progression up to the very point of the end, to where we see Meliodas versus Bond about to be squaring off. And also at the exact same time, you see it to where Veronica tells Hauser that Meliodas and Bond are technically part of the 7 Deadly Sins. So, a lot of setup going on. We're gonna have Bond versus Meliodas next week, which is going to be fucking badass, dude. Like, dude! Best boy Bond versus Meliodas. Who will win? Place your bets. Manga readers, please do not spoil. But anyways, I personally, honestly, I like the episode. The episode's nice. It's a good episode. It does its job nicely. The atmosphere's there. The progression's there. And I'm liking the overall events of this episode. So now that I am done with this segment of the review, I want to dive into the critical parts that I do want to talk about. Now, like I said, what I'm about to get into is about to be like comparisons with the anime and manga. So if you don't like that type of stuff and you don't want to see that type of stuff, then I honestly recommend don't continue watching. I'm just being honest. So anyways, let's dive in deep. You have 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, startle. Okay. So in this episode, they omit Veronica's characterization or character development with Grimoire. Like, okay. Like, in this volume, they actually omit Grimoire and Veronica's development, like their kind of backstory a little bit. And after looking at it and thinking about it, I realized why they would skip it. I actually realized why they skipped it. As I said last week, Seven Deadly Sins A1 Pictures decided to skip Grimoire and Veronica's first introduction scene against the Seven Deadly Sins. As I said last week, Grimoire and Meliodas were supposed to fight last week. They were supposed to have a little fight, but, you know, it got completely skipped. It was gone. It got cut out from the anime. They were supposed to meet in another town, and Grimoire, Veronica, Elizabeth, Bon, Diane, Meliodas were supposed to meet all together. And you're supposed to get some introduction to Veronica's character, her connection with her sister, and at the exact same time, you're supposed to get a little bit of characterization for Grimoire as he tries to protect Veronica. And with this volume, the same complaints I had last week about the necklace being skipped, it doesn't pop up in this volume. It doesn't pop up in this episode, and that's worrisome. It really, really is worrisome. As I've already said, it's worrisome because that is a plot. A major, major plot element, or a plot point of this arc. But it's not just that, okay? I will look past the necklace for now. But I think I know why they decided to skip that Veronica development or backstory with Grimoire in this episode. They skipped it because it actually ties in with the first introduction of when Veronica and Grimoire meet the Seven Deadly Sins in last week's episode. Well, we didn't get to see that, but, you know, pretty much manga readers know. And the thing is like, in that scene in last week's, Veronica was supposed to give a necklace to Elizabeth. The necklace is still not given to Elizabeth in this episode, and when the overall, like, shrink down scene with Diane, when she was shrinking down, Diane was supposed to have the necklace on her, wearing it, for Elizabeth, at that time. And so, they changed that out, but it's not just that. I'm fine past that. But what they did is they cut out how Veronica and Grimoire met Meliodas and them. And with this episode, it could be the translations. It could be the translation's fault, why it seems a little bit iffy, but somehow Veronica and Grimoire knows who Meliodas and Bon is. Like, out of all these Holy Knots, besides Gilfunder, that has some beef or past with, you know, the Seven Deadly Sins pretty much, Veronica shouldn't know what Meliodas or Bon look like at all. See, Hauser, he's a Holy Knot. He keyed in on that, but he didn't think it was them. He just walked off. And so, it could be the translations, but if not, that just opened up a plot hole. That was a plot hole just opened up. How does Veronica and Grimoire know Meliodas, Elizabeth, and Bon are there? And they are the Sins. Because half the people we have seen for the course of the series already, they don't realize who the Sins are because the posters are completely off, besides Elizabeth's. But that's the thing. The only reason why Veronica and Grimoire should know that they are Bon and Meliodas and Elizabeth is with them is because they met in last episode, even though it was completely cut out. They were supposed to meet last episode. So, a lot of questions. Did that just open up a plot hole? Anyways, besides that, it also, this episode skips Bon stealing the clothing. If you look at this scene closely, or this episode closely, you'll notice that Bon keys in on an outfit that looks like his similar outfit we saw him with a couple episodes back. And on the next scene you see him, like, he just goes off, you see him running towards this dude. And then, like, 2 minutes later, Bon has the outfit on, and they completely don't explain how he got the outfit. I mean, it's implied he stole it, but they cut out Bon wrecking a couple fodder people, like wrecking like they're nothing, grabbing the outfit, stealing it, and ripping it off, and just walking out like it's nothing, like a badass. They completely skipped that out. And what gets me upset is that they were willing to omit all this backstory development stuff with Bond or, you know, Veronica and Grimoire, but they were willing to keep all those fan service scenes intact. I see what you did there, everyone. I see what you fucking did there. You kept all the fan service intact. You're fine with that. Show that fucking fan service. But you don't want to show actual important character development and characterizations for characters. Now, people can argue and say that that development with Veronica and Grimoire can be placed in later, which it definitely can. That development can be placed in, but the main cause for concern is the butterfly effect or the chaos theory you can get from this episode. When you start changing events around, that's when you have to worry, because when you change things around, eventually it causes a shift in the story. And it starts changing things that were unexpected, kind of like what happened to Game of Thrones. I saw an article a while back of how the writer of Game of Thrones was talking about what the writers of the series, the live-action series, did. Like, when they were changing events around in the ending of the recent season of, you know, Game of Thrones. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to go into spoiler territory. But pretty much, the overall segment caused the butterfly effect, because they changed things around, were changing things, or completely cutting things out. And that's what even the writer of Game of Thrones did. And that's exactly what is technically happening in this episode. Changing the necklace scene is causing a butterfly effect because it forced A1 to omit the characterization and character development of Veronica and Grimoire. And this can possibly affect other things. So, there's my concerns. Episode still is good and decent, but it depends on how they add in the necklace. Also, I forgot last week too. This is kind of spoilers for anime-only watchers. It's not bad spoilers. It's not like something so fucking bad that it's, you know, it ruins the series or nothing. But the spoilers that I'm about to talk about that appeared last episode. Actually, it appeared last episode in last week's episode. And I didn't mention it because I was fearful of who it really was. And I didn't want to say nothing because I didn't want to spoil anime-only watchers. But a lot of Chibas pointed out, I guess I should say it. Galther appeared last week in last week's episode. Galther shouldn't be here. Galther should not be here. He should not be here. Galther should not be in this arc. Manga readers know what I'm talking about. If you don't believe me, go back to this actual episode, this recent episode. Go to the, you know, previously right at the beginning, and you will see Galther. Look at the face, look at the iconic hair and stuff. And then go to the chapter when he was first introduced in the manga. You will see what I'm talking about. The similarities in character design is exactly similar. It's the same. So Galther is appearing early. Why? That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign at all. But anyways, I want to end this anime review of Taizai now. You all have a wonderful day or not, wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.